Hello everyone, welcome to another Wolfram Language Design Review, part of our Language Completeness and Consistency series. First item, digit count. All right, our friends at OEIS said that a change we made, apparently unwittingly, broke a bunch of code there. We don't like making changes. We didn't intend to make a change. The change we made.
Right. And yes, and I think the change, I mean, my basic point is I think the change was wrong. If we right integer digits of zero, give zero. And since integer digits doesn't give leading digits, that must be a trailing digit. That's a trailing zero, right? Not a leading zero, even though it's hard to tell in this case. Um, and so, there's 1 0
I
there,
don't
right?
understand why integer digits doesn't give a null list. Integer digits of zero doesn't give a
Yeah,
null list.
I mean, that is the possible other direction we could go. I think the main answer is, well, I
There'd be
think that
another
decision was
backward incompatibility.
right. That was and was
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah. These are
decision that was made.
formally defensible changes, but they're backward incompatible and probably will annoy more people than not.
Okay. All right. Well, fine. It has to be understood as a trailing digit. Okay, look. The digit count of zero. Oh my God, what a mess.
Right. So the simple thing to do is to make, change it back so that that digit count of 0 to 0 gives 1, and that would be consistent with integer digits of 0 giving list 0. I mean, we could change that, but we're changing a decision that was made 25 years ago, and
Why did we make the decision to make integer digits of zero not be a null list?
I was not around in 1991, so I cannot answer that question.
Me neither. Well, I mean, I started then, but I don't know the answer.
Can somebody look at the code?
I doubt it would.
I've looked at it before, but what do you want to see in it? What do you want to know?
Well, there's no commentary about why this was done.
I would be
I see. Okay, I'll take a look.
Yeah, I would be highly surprised if there's such commentary, but I might be surprised.
Yeah,
It
real
is
coders
disappointing
don't
that
comment.
integer length of zero is presumably zero, right?
Correct.
That's pretty weird, that integer length is zero and it's not equal to the length of integer digits.
Right.
Why on earth did we make integer digits of zero be a list zero?
For what it's worth, from digits correctly treats an empty list as 0.
Okay, Sander is commenting, digit count should give the same as string length of toString of zero. Well, that's an interesting claim. And obviously toString of zero, that's a justification for what we have right now.
Right. Well, right. It's right. It's total of digit count, right? But yes.
But integer digits, which is giving a list. Well, I think probably the right answer is we should just revert this. It's not perfect, and there are arguments in all directions here, but the overarching argument is why change something that we don't, it's not obviously better.
It's under review now, the reversion.
Yeah,
It'll probably go in today.
Yeah, I saw that you fixed the issue I pointed out, and I was just waiting for a decision from Stephen to actually hit the approve button.
Got
So
it. Got it.
this will go in this afternoon. Yes.
Yeah.
How on earth was it different for base 2 and base 3? That's obviously wrong.
I wrote special case code for base 2 that used bit functions, bit length, etc., and missed the fact that I'd introduced the incompatibility. Or I did it with malice aforethought just to annoy the people at OEIS. I don't know.
Okay, but that's clearly a bug. I mean, these two have to be consistent.
Right.
And I think Sanders' argument that it's the same as string length of toString is certainly a justification to have that be 1.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then these are consistent. The only thing that's a little weird, which maybe it should be an impossible issue, is the integer length of not being the same as length of integer digits.
Yep. Yeah, I'll definitely add some notes to all. I didn't think of integer length, but I should definitely add notes, some commentary or possible issues examples to these pages once it's merged.
Okay, sounds good. UnitVector negative indexing.
Right. So this is something that Danny recently introduced. This is a 15.1 only. This is not going into 15, and it's very minor. The question is, should we document this? And, I personally think this is kind of silly.
What is it doing? I don't understand what it's doing.
It's basically, right, it's basically counting from the end, right? So integer unit vector of n comma k makes the kth position a 1. And, if you do it minus k, it's counting from the end, which, negative indexing is useful in part because in part you don't explicitly know what the length of the expression you're extracting from is. But in unit vector, you always have to give the length right there. It's the first argument. So you could just as easily write, n comma n minus 1 instead of n comma minus 1, but or I guess n comma n would be n comma minus 1. So it's even, using negative indexing is actually longer in that particular instance.
You don't want to discriminate against those of us with negative dispositions, Itai.
Oh, that's why. Okay, well, now I'm convinced.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have a strong objection to this. I think it's a little silly, but I just wanted your sign off before I updated the ref page. It's a very minor thing, which is why it's here at number 2 instead of deeper in the agenda.
Sorry. I got distracted by something. Could you say that again? What?
All right. So copy that second input.
Okay.
And then change the minus k to k in the.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So that's right. So those are positive indices with unit vector, and what Danny
I understand.
added.
So these go from the end. But what's this thing?
Oh, so unit vector has a documented 1 arg form, which is do it in 2 dimensions.
Oh,
so
I see.
Which I don't know why we ever did that. It's more confusing and creates extra work and maintenance, I think, than just having a 2 there. But it is there and documented as the first usage even, I think. So we have to support it.
Okay.
So
I don't object to this minus thing. I think it's mildly useful. I think if you have very big, I can imagine a situation in which you're having, if unit vector of 100 comma whatever. You know what I'm saying?
So I'm going to only make a comment here in relation to do we want or could we want in the future some sort of extension such that the vectors are counted from something else other than 1, say from 0? Same sort of argument that we have in array, I think. And then this might get in the way.
Well, I was thinking you were going to say something about contravariant vectors or something.
It's a bit like that. But I'm thinking of the general relativity case in which we count from 0 to 3 rather than 1 to 4. Or, I don't know, with spherical harmonics in which we use negative numbers sometimes.
I mean, it might be, I don't know that well, I mean, I think we'd need to account for the offset, but I don't know. Right. Well, yeah, I guess then the question is -1. Well,
Yeah,
I guess -1 should still be the, the quote unquote largest value, whether that's right. But then you'd have a 0 in addition to, right. But then you couldn't have a 4, right? So right. I mean, quotient and mod like accept offsets, right? So I don't think, and also negative things. So I don't think there's a huge issue there, but I could be wrong.
But following up on what Jose said, if I'm remembering right, the embedding space for anti-de Sitter space has 2 times, and so you start indexing from -1.
I see. And right. Oh, I see. So right. If we allowed for the possibility of true negative indices, then this would get in the way.
Is this feature a feature anybody cares about? This -k thing? Why did we
It came up in a suggestion report, and that's what I was responding to. One of the reports I inherited. I do not recall off the top of my head if it was an external or internal suggestion.
It was an internal suggestion, I think, from Zbigniew.
My God.
Might have been.
That's more than 20 years ago.
Not necessarily, but
No.
it's probably about a decade old.
Yeah, I was going to guess 10 or so.
Okay. I don't know. Seems a bit unnecessary to me. I mean, I'm trying to think about cases where you have a unit vector, you have 100, unit vector of 100, comma, -3 or something. It's amusing, but nobody will ever remember it's there. I don't know. If we think there's a risk, I just don't think we should do it.
Okay.
Is it going to cause problems with people then trying to do 0 or?
It's like part. I mean.
Yeah, I mean that's what I mean is, but
I
imagine somebody like
zero is disallowed.
Okay.
And right.
Yeah.
And there's no meaning to, right, because we don't have a head here, right?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So
Yeah.
I don't see an issue with that. I really don't think there's a downside offhand, but yeah.
Okay, let's.
He muttered under his breath.
Oh, for goodness sake! No,
Well,
I mean
okay. So this is Jeremy's updated suggestion. You don't, right? And as I don't know if Noah has any ideas.
Billy, is he here? He sent a few this morning as well.
Oh, I must have missed those.
Oh no, they're in here.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, Billy. So yes, right.
Yeah. So blue instead of red, maybe, but with the circle looks less like a close button. Why do you not like the red?
Because I think it's a thing where it suggests there's some kind of error condition happening.
Or danger, right? It's
yeah, it's just like you can have it mouse, go red on hover.
You are throwing away all your work, so there is.
I know, but so it should go red on hover, not
I
red.
like that. Red on hover only. I want some kind of flash of warning that's a serious thing you're doing. Just throwing everything away.
Right. So,
then the problem is with the next,
if you look at the
like you're
current
dismissing the dialogue.
visuals, if you open up the static visuals, that should show us both buttons in isolation right now. Right. So maybe if we use the current button when not hovering, and then that red button, one of those red buttons. I don't know if Billy's.
I don't think this looks like a closed box.
Yeah, I like the
exactly.
Billy's blue X is nice, I thought.
Yeah, I think that's
some
fine.
more that way.
Which blue X?
In number 2.
Oh, in number 2. Okay.
So this one with the red hover.
Sorry, removed too much.
Just to be clear, exit evaluation without finishing, that's just a full-on abort, right?
Right.
Yes.
So, right. So the stop button is right, and not everything. In fact, most things don't have both these buttons. Most things have at most one, or perhaps exactly one of these buttons. Julio can correct me if he's actually here. He was invited. I know.
Yeah, he was invited, but he told me he was not able to. To make it to come.
So at so if you go to the live examples, you'll see that in both of the live examples I came up with, there's only one of the 2 buttons is shown, but they're 2 different actions. The stop sign is abort, is stop and return partial result, and the X sign is a abort.
And if it's a full-on abort, that means all evaluations that were queued to that kernel stop.
Yes.
Just to make it clear.
Yeah, but only in yes, I understand. I don't think it's that dramatic. I mean, people know this thing. Yeah, I mean, the idea that you could stop and return a partial result is a very exotic case.
How many computations can actually return a partial result?
Very few.
I mean, machine learning that has stop buttons for, stop training.
Which is exactly this button, right?
So, yeah, but that's probably very much the exceptional case to actually being able to.
I don't see any reason when there is a stop button. I don't see any reason to have an abort button. I don't think there's ever a reason to have both buttons.
And I'm not sure there are any cases where we do. I mean,
okay, fine. So these are unrealistic pictures.
Oh, yes.
Right. Yeah. So what we're looking at is either the circle here, we've got a gray circle and a blue square, or we've got a gray circle and a blue X. Those are the 2 cases, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those seem okay to me to do that.
Okay.
And then the blue X can turn red and say exit evaluation without finishing. It shouldn't go that dramatically red. It could just redden, I don't know what you want to do. It could redden.
We could redden the X only.
Yeah, redden the X.
Okay.
Seems right to me. Okay. Should we keep going?
Yep. Right. So these are a couple of small things about Tally that, I was fixing bugs and noticed. So one thing is that since 2014, Tally has apparently supported tally of association, which basically does tally of values of the association. But this was never documented. And I don't know if this was just a deliberate decision or some sort of oversight. So I'm guessing the latter, but I don't see a reason not to document it. But again, I'm bringing this up. So, if anybody sees any issues with this, we can.
Sorry, I just noticed that Danny had found this comment in the
okay.
for integer digits. This is bizarre, and I think can be ignored.
Yeah, what line is that in, Danny? What's the line number?
It doesn't matter.
It's in the integer digits, arithmetic/integer digits, but I don't remember the line.
Okay.
It's more than halfway down.
Okay. All right. Okay, so tally. What do you mean? Sorry, tally of an association.
Right. So I guess I should have provided an example, but right, just type in, tally of. I don't have a tally example here because that's not a changed behavior. But if you just do tally of, A goes to 1, B goes to 2 or whatever.
Well, it's going to do
Or
C goes
sure.
to 2.
Sure.
I should have done this.
Right,
Okay.
which if you notice is exactly the same thing as tally of values of the association.
Exactly. Okay, so what else could it do? Well, what's the question here?
The question is, this was never documented, and so the question is, should we document it?
I don't think so. I think it's just a thing that happens to work.
Okay.
Okay. So we can return sparse and structured arrays instead of normalizing.
Right. So.
Well, that's good.
Right. I mean,
I think it's good.
Okay.
I think it's fair game to change some certain things to be sparse.
Yes, I want you to open up the 15 behavior just so we can see the dramatic in the structured array case. Right? So that number is the ratio of the byte count of the input to the tally.
Well,
so it's a slight improvement when you keep the structure.
Well, yes. Yeah, I can see the Levi-Civita tensor is kind of an extreme case.
Of course, but.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Okay. I just want to know, what is the LCC backlog at this time?
I don't know.
Okay. I want to emphasize that in terms of strategic things we're trying to deliver and kind of I guess it's in the LCC world, some of these progress monitoring things I consider to be fairly important.
Right. And that was, yes. And well, like I said, I need resources to work on that.
So we will provide that. I mean, we will hopefully be able to provide that. And the question is to just make sure we've scoped out what it is we're trying to do.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think let's make sure we have a design. I mean, we don't really have user level. If somebody wanted to do user level progress monitoring, we don't really have that at this time. We should get that design. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I mean, right. We do have a ref page for the internal function and we talked about doing that. Don't know why we haven't, but I mean, that would need to probably be cleaned up a little bit. Again, we'd either need Julio to do that, or we would need to pick a replacement for Julio to be responsible for this code if we're going to be making any changes.
Okay. Well, we should talk about that. But
okay.
But I mean, let's get a design. I mean, the things we're trying to do. Okay. Point 1, user level design for progress monitor. Okay, that's first thing.
Yeah.
You should just review that design. Second thing, we're trying to inventory what functions need a progress monitor. Okay, actually, there's another thing. One question is, can we make a generic progress monitor that just uses the stack trace? Where any evaluation that's gone on for more than X amount of time, starts putting up a progress monitor with the stack trace. Is that conceivable or is that undoable?
My initial instinct is that's undoable because the moment, if there's any uninterruptible evaluation in there, you're going to get the spinning beach ball of doom.
Okay.
I mean, I'll add this to my sticky note I don't know if John has any thoughts on this point, but I'll certainly add this to my sticky note of things to discuss in my next meeting with Tom. But that is, as I said, my initial instinct is probably not.
Well, you're saying, I mean, it's an interesting kind of like LLM project to put, if we have to put whole points for progress monitoring, I suspect we could do that, by some kind of code transformation thing. But I don't know whether we need to. Right? In other words, the question is, I don't know the architecture at this point. If we're running, we're in the middle of some inner loop. I see. And the problem is there any way to asynchronously put up something which can examine our Wolfram language stack, not the system stack, and show something asynchronous from, I mean, dynamic of it? Well, okay, if you're in a really tight inner loop, you won't get the interrupt for dynamic. Is that a true statement?
Right. So if the dynamic can be handled entirely in the front end, then it'll just do its thing, right? But if the dynamic needs to, talk to the kernel, and the kernel is in an uninterruptible state, you get 6 seconds, and then you get the spinning beach ball of doom.
Yeah.
John can correct me if I'm misspeaking.
Dynamics access to the kernel is, as I understand it, completely equivalent to the ability to interrupt.
Right. Okay. Well, the question is then, I mean, and QA probably knows something about this. When are there pieces of code that are uninterruptible? Something we should look at. And also something we should look at, particularly in modern LLM times when we can do, a bit more in the way of code refactoring. We should add that to the GPL list.
Yeah, I should say it's certainly been the case that I have reported kernel interruptibility bugs because they were things which were first reported to me as dynamic problems.
Right. So basically at the risk of, setting you off on one of your rants, right, most package loading is uninterruptible. So if you have a slow loading package, then that can cause
okay.
dynamic
In a
issues.
separate discussion that involves Tom, etc., let's talk about interruptibility scanning. Okay, but let's assume that interruptibility is there. Okay, which it isn't in all cases, right? But any case where it isn't there is basically a bug. Does that make sense?
I mean, well, you can make that claim. I don't know that that's actually compatible.
All right, fine.
With
but the separate issue is interruptibility that should be there, but we just forgot in some way. Okay, and that's a thing for which we can try and scan for that, and we can, connect that to sort of QA tests and so on. Okay?
I think there's another case too.
Yeah.
I'm not the expert, but the case where the kernel delegates to a library.
Exactly.
Then it's not going to
use. Exactly so.
Right, which is a form of uninterruptibility.
Yep.
Yes, I know. That's a case where I'm thinking we could potentially do code refactoring for the library. Okay, that's a high wire thing. May not work, but I think it is. Today it's conceivable. In the past, it was not conceivable. I also wonder.
We could fork a kernel too.
Yes.
It's just difficult to get the back communication to work. Something I looked into recently.
Well, and I mean, back in I remember in SMP, in what was it? This must have been in early Unixes, and this is 1980 or something. There was this whole, what was it? Long jump, set break long jump. Is that right? Which was anybody know what I'm talking about?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The C. long
Yeah,
jump.
the C long jump is
Yeah.
I mean, it still exists.
Yes, but that's a way of doing sort of arbitrary interruptibility in principle. I mean, it was in back 45 years ago. I don't know what happened to it since. What happened to it?
Well,
yes and no, right? I mean, you interrupt. That doesn't mean you've preserved any of the state, or you can continue using the main evaluation loop.
A more modernized way of doing this would be exception handling. The class of problems for which you once used long jump is probably not a perfect overlap, but tend to be now problems that are implemented with exception handling.
Okay, but okay. So look, first question is, okay, let's assume we have interruptibility, which there is a separate project to enhance interruptibility. Let's assume we have it. If we have it, can we have a generic solution that shows what's on the stack? Let's say we have something that's running for 3 seconds.
Oh, that's way too short.
Okay, whatever, pick your time, 10 seconds. I don't know. An amount of time where you might be worrying, is this actually doing something reasonable or not? And remember, the UX does not have to have a giant in-your-face thing. Right? So in principle, is it possible to have something which samples the stack every so often?
Well, we have something that samples the stack when potentially when messages are issued.
I know.
Right.
I know.
Although that's in the main loop, right? So when messages called, it calls.
Right, that's not asynchronous.
Yeah.
I think that's
so the short answer, Stephen, is I don't know, and I would need to talk to Tom.
Okay, well, maybe you can do that and see what we come back with.
I already said that I put this on. In fact, I have literally already put this on my sticky note for my next meeting with Tom.
Okay, all right. But then the next question is, I mean, even if one could do it, is it in fact desirable? Because, it's going to be random internal functions that you're going to see are on the stack.
Right. So you're right. I think it actually is bad both ways, right? There will be random internal top-level functions, right? And then you will also have, one C function calls another C function, calls a third C function, and that doesn't show up anywhere in the stack.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it potentially calls top-level code from inside that.
Right.
Okay. So that suggests.
Although for what it's worth, C++ debuggers deal with that case all the time.
What do they do?
You're calling through a module that has no symbols, and then that module calls back into code that does have symbols, and you just have call stacks which have they give basically some address information and such, but it's basically anonymous garbage, but those call stacks or those stack frames are there,
right?
But you can't really get anything useful out of them.
So you're right. I mean, the difference is that depending on how the the internal function calls the top level code, that top level code may or may not actually show up in stack.
Okay, but what this is implying is the real pressure is on functions that we think might take a long time and can have useful telemetry for what they're doing.
Okay. Danny, do you feel like writing progress monitoring for integrate?
Oh, gosh. I can imagine that would go over only mildly better than it would for Grubner basis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although actually, we're actually rewriting integrate. I don't know if you're aware of this, Stephen.
I am
well aware.
So
yes, that's been a 5-year project or something. So it's
But I wonder if that one might be better situated for progress monitoring.
Okay. I think progress monitoring can be put into lots of functions if we only knew which ones they were. And even if the progress monitoring isn't very profound, it's still, many of these functions go through different stages, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think it is perfectly realistic to put something in. And if it's meaningless, then even just saying it's, computing blah, blah, blah with a dot, dot, dot that jumps around is still useful. Because it's like, what was really taking time here? Oh, it's a Grosvenor basis computation. Now, I mean, that has to be done with care because I think, some aspects of that, like, oh, I thought I was doing elementary kind of high school geometry, but actually it was computing a Grosvenor basis. That's really freaky. That's not very useful. Am I making sense? So I don't have a good, but there are other cases where it's very useful to know that that's where it's spending time.
Right. And I will just sort of point out, that, having a sort of a generalist working on this may not be then the right thing, because you might need sort of, the knowledge of
No, I know.
or whatever.
We want to understand the pattern of how you generate progress monitoring. Point one, the top level function and its internal kind of mirror, analog. The second thing is to just start inventorying, and this is something that QA should know, which functions can take significant time. There are plenty of functions where for small input, there's no way it takes a significant time. I mean, even, in the test suite, which functions take a significant time? And that gives us a list of what functions are common and take a significant time. Those are ones that are prime candidates to get progress monitoring.
Okay.
And I can imagine there are things with tabular, for example, where, okay, I said with small input, but in that case, for example, importing giant files, that's a place where I could imagine progress monitoring. Doing operations on giant tabulars, same kind of thing. I mean, with respect to the front end, I don't know. I mean, the things that tend to take time are rendering, giant graphics expressions. And I'm not sure how useful the progress monitoring for that is. It's very bad karma, by the way, to have a section that says not urgent, because we haven't gotten to it for probably a year.
Well, I mean, you are the one who insisted that we need to talk about this, and then you've been ignoring this. Maybe I should have removed that, but when this was first added,
No, we shouldn't remove it. We should not remove it.
Well, I mean, remove the not urgent tag. At some point,
yes,
it was, at some point, this came up right before the previous release, and I didn't want to be distracted by this.
Well, so the things where it says these are just bugs, why don't we feed them to the relevant people and get them fixed?
If you read the very first large red bullet point, it says at least some of these have been fixed. So
okay, all right, okay.
Possibly at this point, all of them have been. I just haven't gone through and verified that.
Problem symbol.
Oh.
Oops, I can't edit that. Okay, whatever.
All right, I'll fix it for the next time if there's a
no,
next time.
never mind. I fixed it. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's just bonkers.
I believe, yes.
These are bonkers, most of these.
One of them is in my area, so I have to take the blame for that one. Tooltip. All the tooltip ones are in my area.
Right. And as I said, we can, if we were to make any change there, we would still need to support that forever because, that's burned into notebooks.
Yeah,
right. The ones using sort, that probably should be sorted or whatnot,
yes,
right?
I think so.
Do we have a sorted head or a symbol?
I thought we did, but we certainly discussed it at one point.
we have sorted by, which is but we don't have a sorted. So,
well, that's something that's probably where we should go with that.
Okay.
Let's say register prevent. That's just bonkers. It's just bonkers. That I suspect is also your thing, John.
I
no.
No.
This came from our nodes team.
Even the create document, which is certainly in my area, but was done outside of my of my visible radius. It's it just happened without my ever having seen it. So.
Well, the good news is there's no
the screen image and the screen image stuff wasn't us at all.
It's not documented.
Well, yeah. Oh, okay. I guess it's
not
not
documented.
Not unless there's an under documentation bug, which is about to be fixed by somebody.
Oh no. Okay. Why don't
we I did
find out? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, at first glance, I didn't see that the sort option, at least for down values, it's not documented. And what's not listed here is that JLinks add to class path also takes a prepend option that's not documented.
Okay, so let's find out of these which are documented, and the ones that aren't documented, we should leave them for some kind of weird compatibility, but then we leave them undocumented. If they need a documented analog, let's invent that.
Yeah, and it certainly for the front end ones, we have an aliasing system, so we can always just leave an alias for the old thing in place forever. That's not a problem.
Sounds good. All right. Well, so a little bit more work to do on these, and then we will finally talk about them and let's get rid of the not urgent tag.
Okay.
All right.
Can I briefly take us back to the icons we were talking about for the stop abort thing?
Yes.
So I've only just understood the issue. So I do not like overloading the stop icon because in the toolbar, it does mean abort. And in here, it means basically, use the partial results and continue.
Right. Well, I would say that is your error because that stop button predates the toolbar by multiple versions.
Sure, but I still think a stop icon is more apt, right? You are stopping the process. It's not like so my suggestion for the other case, which is essentially continue using the partial result, is something like a skip track icon, because you're not stopping, you're continuing with what you already have. That seems to make more sense.
Are you suggesting that the button here just becomes a stop button in all cases, but on mouse over it either turns red, indicating that it's going to abort the whole thing, or it has some other color with a tooltip that says return partial result?
Well, it would not that would work, I guess. However, the wording stop and return partial result, as someone who wasn't familiar with sort of the discussion on this, I didn't understand what that meant. I interpreted that as abort. I think continue using partial result makes more sense.
Or continue with partial results.
Continue with partial result.
Well, stop this computation.
Yeah, but my point is that's not clear from that.
I know it's not clear, so I'm saying maybe we say that stop computation and return partial result.
But it still does. I still.
But the rest of the evaluation around it continues.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I had this suggestion, which I may or may not have mentioned earlier. I certainly wrote it in the agenda. Right, was that we use a stop button for both of them, only the stop and use partial result is the current stop button, and the stop button, the abort button, is the stop button from the toolbar. And right, so one is stopping the computation, the other is stopping the kernel. That makes a certain amount of sense to me. That may not make sense to anybody else.
I think it's really tough to justify. I think having the sort of the ruffled thing around the edges that is a spiky is weird.
So to be clear, the icon that Noah was suggesting was basically the fast forward icon, the double
like the skip
right
track
triangle.
icon, which makes more sense, right? Because it's like, okay, you've got to where you've got, continue with what you've.
I see what you're saying. Skip that.
Yeah.
We do have to make a decision on this, don't we? Really, right away.
If we want to add this to 15, yes.
Okay, look, what I think we should do. Okay, what do we have right now? We have a stop button in all cases. Is that correct?
No, we have a stop button and we have the X button, which you didn't like.
I think having a stop button, which upon mouse over says returns partial results, or I see what you're saying.
Right, you precisely did not want us to use the same icon in both cases.
Unfortunately,
and I think that's true.
Some other meeting.
What about a little hooked arrow, like return key type arrow instead of
Nobody's
stop?
going to understand it. Nobody's going to understand this. The only things that people are, a stop button, people are going to understand. And the question of the fact that it returns
but
partial
they're going
results
to understand
is
it as abort, because we've already used that in the toolbar, and I think that's just more what the stop button would imply.
Okay, but look, here's my point of view. The fact that it allows you to go on is a luxury. And we should just say, that's nice, I mean, your concern is that it will immediately start doing other evaluations. If you stop this one, you have other evaluations queued.
Well, I think
not just other evaluations queued. It continues with the existing evaluation, right?
Right. Yes.
Well,
if
yes.
you had if you had F of net train, then in one and you hit that stop button, then you'll get the partial result and then F of whatever. Whereas if you hit if all you had was the abort button, right, you'd get dollar aborted because unless possibly unless the computation was wrapped in in a catch-all.
Guys, look. Okay. What is the current status quo in version 15, and how does it differ from what we had in version 14.3?
In 15, we do not have this X button because, right, we created this button for one arg monitor. In 14.3 and currently in 15, we have, right, we only have the stop and return partial result button.
And the issue that came up is one arg monitor needs what? It needs a pure abort button. Is that right?
It needs a pure abort because map doesn't have right. It wouldn't even make sense to return a partial result from map. I don't think. Right. That would be a completely right. A thing that's not trained as much as it could be is still a valid trained thing. A map where only like the first three elements have
look,
F.
I think what we should do,
by the way, is why I like the skip track button, because it's like continue.
What about like a green approve check mark for that case?
Guys, listen, look, the fact that you can go on with other queued evaluations and so on is a weird luxury that few people will understand. Most of the time.
I mean, if it's but if that's what it's doing, it's not just a luxury, it's a control that we have to explain to people.
I know we're not going to get to it right now. I suggest what we do for this version, we leave the stop button that is in, net train and so on for right now. And for the case of one argument monitor, we have the circled X button. Okay? One argument monitor is going to be a new, slightly flaky thing. And so let's do that for now. And let's bring this back in the next, cycle and figure this out for real. Does that sound reasonable to people?
Okay, so add one arg monitor to 15 with just the blue X or blue X with red?
The blue X which can go to red on hover if it feels like it.
Okay. So Bill,
and it should say, I don't know why, exit evaluation. It should say abort evaluation without finishing. It should just say abort evaluation. I don't know why it says anything other than that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's an easy enough change. That's just updating a text resource. Yeah. So
Okay.
if we can't if we can't get the red button in, it's okay to go in with a
Yes,
blue button
blue
that
button.
doesn't hover.
Yes.
All
Yes,
right, then
yes,
I will. So Billy, send us, send
Okay.
me and
I have to
Julio.
run, guys. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
See you guys soon. Bye
Okay.
for now.
But Billy, please send me and Julio the